Have you ever had a really important task that you need to get done, but you can't seem to find the focus or the energy to tackle it? If so, perhaps you are suffering from burnout. Burnout is estimated to have impacted 89% of people in the last year. But what is it exactly? How can we alleviate the symptoms? And most importantly, how can we prevent it from happening again? By the end of this video, you'll be able to spot and avoid burnout, but hopefully you'll also discover new ways to find enjoyment and sustainability in your work too. And if that happens, surely you've got to subscribe. First of all, let's talk about what burnout is. Burnout is defined by Mental Health UK as a state of physical and emotional exhaustion. And whilst all of our experiences of burnout may vary, there are some pretty common symptoms. Feeling tired or drained all the time, feeling detached or isolated, increased procrastination or reduced productivity, and feeling overwhelmed, often not knowing why. For me, when I went through burnout, it felt like there was this barrier in the way of doing even the simplest of tasks. It came to me when I was trying to juggle a full-time job whilst also studying 3 or 4 hours a night. Over time, the workload and the stress got so much that at one point I was trying to send a voice note and I couldn't even focus enough to remember what I just said. It ended up being like a 3-minute voice note and no one wants to receive that. See, burnout can often sneak up on us, and until we recognize the symptoms, it's often too late. And before I go on to how to combat burnout, I think it's very important to say that it is a physical experience too. Our hormones change, our cortisol levels spike, essentially our bodies enter a fight or flight state. And I remember I desperately wanted to push through this and continue working. But when you do that, essentially you're fighting against your mind and your body, which is a battle you're likely to lose. It's crucial to understand that burnout is a physiological as well as psychological experience, and that there should be no shame attached to it. So, that being said, what can we do to combat the symptoms of burnout? The first step to combat burnout is often the hardest, and that is taking a step back. When we try to work through our burnout, it's kind of like trying to keep running with cramp. The quality of our work gets worse the longer we push on, and the more permanent the damage becomes. You have to let the muscle relax, stretch it out, and then only after that you can think about finishing the race. And this can be tough. Often we experience burnout at times when taking a step back doesn't feel possible, like during exams or just before an important deadline. And it's not my place to tell anyone where their priorities should lie. Perhaps you think it's worth suffering for a couple of more weeks to get your things done. That's your decision to make. However, the longer we push through our burnout and try and battle it, the more lasting and damaging the impacts may become, so bear that in mind. During your time off, there are key things you can do to make your rest and recovery more effective. Getting good sleep to allow your body to recover and fight the physiological symptoms. Exercising regularly to promote the release of feel-good hormones and neuroplasticity. And spending time in nature. And whilst I'm not entirely sure about the science behind spending time in nature, I just know that for me, it has massively helped me at times when I felt stressed or overwhelmed. If you take time out, work on maintaining your health and reducing that stress, when you come back, you'll feel more refreshed, focused, and motivated. So hopefully now you can see that taking a step back is so important to combat burnout. But how can we stop it from happening again? It all comes down to taking regular, re-energizing breaks. I've known for ages that taking breaks is really important for our sustainability, but it was only until recently I considered the second part of that, the re-energizing aspect. Our breaks should be times for us to unwind and process things to allow us to get into a rested state before we start doing work again. And something I've learned from Dr. K recently is that unprocessed thoughts and feelings can turn into this kind of ball of negative energy inside of us and influence our future experiences. So how do we make our breaks more re-energizing? Personally, I have implemented these 3 changes so when I get back to work, I feel more focused, motivated, and energized. The first thing I changed about taking breaks is not using my phone. Our phones numb the emotional centers in our brain and prevent us from processing how we're feeling. Plus, we're providing our brains with so much sensory information when we're scrolling, it just kind of layers on top of everything else we've experienced in the day. I remember coming back from my breaks and feeling like my threshold for working was actually lower than what it was when I went off for my break. And I think it's because we haven't untangled this negative ball of energy inside of us. Actually, we've just added to it. So then the second change I made was changing my environment. Our brains are very good at making associations between states and places. For example, we feel relaxed when we get into bed or we feel energized and focused when we step onto a football pitch. And the same goes for our workplaces. When we're at our desk, our brain is in work mode. We feel focused, alert, and ready for the day. So when we refuse to leave our desks during our breaks, it's kind of difficult for us to get out of that state and relax. And it also works the other way around. When we're working, we want to be focused and energized. And engaging in relaxing or thoughtless activities at our desk can make it more difficult to get into work mode. Personally, I think leaving my desk and going downstairs or even outside has been the most beneficial change for me, and it has allowed me to be more focused while I'm working and more relaxed when I'm not. And the last change I made was incorporating some form of exercise every day. Sometimes that means taking 5 minutes to tidy my room or doing anything that just gets me moving. But sometimes, even if I do take these breaks, sometimes it feels like this stress just kind of adds up to this peak moment in the day. And in these moments, it's almost essential for me to go for a walk or do some kind of workout. And there's tons of research on the impact of exercise and our emotions, but also something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is essentially how our brain adapts to new information. It's when new connections are formed between neurons and the physical structure of our chain actually changes. And during exercise, neuroplasticity is enhanced, essentially meaning that our brain becomes more ready to learn and to adapt. For example, have you ever had a problem that you just can't seem to solve, but then you go for a walk and suddenly the solution comes to you? Well, that is likely the real-time impact of neuroplasticity. The new connections between neurons can link concepts and ideas that you hadn't previously considered, which may lead to the solution that you wanted. Plus, who doesn't love a hit of serotonin as you exercise? Although I've got to say, I strongly believe that runner's high is a myth. I never feel good running. Burnout is a real threat to your productivity and your mental health, and it can really creep up on us if we don't take the steps to avoid it. For me, during my breaks, not using my phone, changing my environment, and doing some sort of exercise has massively helped me combat these symptoms and avoid future burnout. And let me know in the comments if there's anything that you do to wind down or reduce the stress you experience each day. On the note of trying to increase your productivity, there is something that I've been considering a lot, and I've actually made a video about recently, and it's flow state. Flow state is this experience of absolute drive and concentration in the moment that can lead to outstanding results. And if you want to watch a video talking about that and my simple method to achieve it almost every day, you can check that out right there. I hope this video helped, and if it did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. This channel is all about progression and growth and learning, so if that appeals to you, make sure you stay tuned, I guess. And aside from that, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye bye.